Check out ProPure USA water purification systems. Pro 1 water and fluoride filter elements feature the most advanced technology combining silver, impregnated, self-sterilizing white ceramic that cleans water and removes the latest form of fluoride, sometimes found in public drinking water. That means amazingly clean, fresh water for you and your family. Click the link below and visit ProPureUSA.com right now.
When I went into politics, and actually the first time I ran for office was in '74, one in '76, and then after a few years, I thought I didn't want to give up medicine, so I went back to medicine for 12 years, and that's when I ran again in '96. So it's been a large part of what I've done, but I've never seen it as a career. I've seen it always as secondary, and the staff gave me a lot of credit, and change has occurred. We do know there is a revolution going on, by the way. You know, the big argument on the Hill right now is anger at the Republicans that would even dare think about closing down the government. And even some of the conservatives, and they're thoughtful conservatives, they say, well, you don't gain anything, you're not going to change anything, and you lose too much political capital, those types of arguments. My assumption is that it would probably be better to close down the government than let the whole system break down. That's what our real worry should be. I do get annoyed with the disingenuous programs of the Republicans still, because, right now they're talking about standing firm and closing down the government because they want to stop Obamacare. Well, we should have never had it, and it should be abolished, and all those arguments. But the whole thing is behind the scenes, if you look carefully at the budget, guess what? They're not giving up one penny in the military-industrial complex. But why can't we come together and cut both the military and the medical program? The infractions, though, occurred that were predicted by the anti-federalists, and I think the real problem started in 1913. It's been downhill ever since. So if we had 1 year that we could repeal, let's repeal 1913. Then we wouldn't have the Woodrow Wilson foreign policy. We wouldn't have the Woodrow Wilson's infraction of our civil liberties. We wouldn't have the income tax, and we wouldn't have the Federal Reserve System either. One thing that I don't think I ever did, because I purposely tried never to do it, was ever mention, oh, the president did this, and the Democrats did this, and this sort of thing. I think that I always thought that was missing the point, because I didn't deal with that system. I was always talking to somebody else, believing that if people changed or heard something and it sounded reasonable, they would change their minds. And that is what I think is happening because of the educational efforts and all the things going on. But there's a couple other things that's helping us. One is the proof of the failure of this system, the proof of the failure of what we've been doing. Just think of in our lifetime, the major event of the 20th century, as far as I'm concerned, especially political economic event, was the collapse of the Soviet system. It just dissipated, not because we had to attack them and fight them. They had 30,000 missiles, and we have to be worried, and I resent it very much that we spend so much time and energy worrying about a bomb that doesn't exist in one particular country, and we were able to live through the dangerous period of the Soviets having 30,000, and they failed because they had a deeply flawed economic policy, and it has got us to the point where really people don't talk about, well, what we now need is communism and pure socialism. What we needed and what happened came out of the downfall of the Cold War was this moderation, this mixture of things, this Keynesianism and intervention in the economy and the planning and central banking. Inflation is and debt is good, borrowing is okay. It's ending. And that means there's an opening there, there's a vacuum there, and it's going to be filled by liberty. Not only does it give us our answer to our economic crisis by looking at a different economic model, it gives us our answer to our foreign policy mess that we have, of non-interventionists, mind our own business, take the advice of the founders, friendship and trade and defending our country but not getting involved in these civil wars that we have no business getting involved in. So that's what the kind of the policy we would have if we would accept these principles. And also, the freedom philosophy gives you the answer to and bring people together, bring the left and the right together, the progressives and the libertarians and constitutional together, and to combat this insanity of allowing our government to know every single thing we do every minute of the day. That's evil. I was on a talk show this week, and somebody said, what do you think we should do with the n.s.a.? And he said, what would you do with it? I said, get rid of it. And I think that's what's happened on this Syria vote. The people spoke out. But who was championing this? The Democrats and the Republicans, Nancy Pelosi and John Boehner. They were both for this, supporting the president. But the people said no, and we don't know the final story here, but I consider that very, very encouraging that the American people stood up and said, don't vote to go to war. And I think it was the same type of coalition on the vote that Justin and Mosh brought up and almost won. It was the coalition, once again, of Republicans and Democrats who were not locked into the partisanship of defending their parties and defending the status quo. But both parties defend the same foreign policy, management styles, a little bit different. They both defend the Fed, and decide on how fast to print the money. Both defend deficits. Neither one comes out, or we wouldn't have deficits if we had Republicans in. They'd get rid of the deficit, wouldn't they? They never do. So they all believe really basically in the same principle. It's anti-liberty. True diversity will be served by the coming together in the defense and the use of liberty. The diversity that they talk about now is forced diversity and it preordained by some type of social engineers and saying this is the way we are going to mandate diversity. No, diversity means that you come together for one purpose, protecting liberty so that we can recognize it's our life to make it worthwhile, or it's our life to mess it up, and we can't blame anybody else if we do. I think one of our biggest flaws as freedom fighters and libertarians and conservatives is that I think we do a lousy job arguing the moral case for liberty and the practical case for it. Because always, the opposition say, yeah, you guys are fine and dandy. You're rich and you can take care of yourself, but we care about people. We care about the poor, and that's why we have food programs and free housing and all these things. Yeah, and what do you give us? Detroit. That's what you give us. So non-aggression, the nonviolent principle. And the left has used this. Martin Luther King used it in a positive way, in saying, that civil disobedience, peaceful disobedience is okay, and it rejects the use of force. And Gandhi was able to achieve a lot in that manner. But here it is. We create a system where the rich get richer, the poor get poorer, and the people who try to do it, the wages never keep up with the cost of living. And then what does our government do to them? They say, oh, there's no inflation. There's no inflation. And the elderly, well, we can't even earn interest on our savings, and our cost of living is going, oh, no, you're just kidding yourself. But it is a race. It is a race that we're in place because there will have to be a replacement. And if we let things slip, we can easily slip back to tyranny and statism and all the old-fashioned ideas. But to make this a true revolution that is successful, we have to understand it to make sure that freedom is on the side of victory in this revolution. Thank you very much. Thank you.